I was going to do a podcast with my friend Josh today, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it. So here we are. It's just me for this episode talking about the geography of the United States. It's one of those countries that everyone knows pretty much. Everyone can pick out where it is on a map. And if you know someone from there, you probably already know the basics like how big it is, how many people live there, what kind of climate they have, and so on. But I think there's still so much more to learn about any place, and the U.S. is no exception. So when I was thinking of topics to cover this week, I wanted to talk about something that goes beyond the basics that separates the U.S. from other countries. And I think that thing is its identity. The U.S. operates under a different set of ideologies than a lot of other nations. It has a unique relationship between itself and its people, and that makes it operate in a different way. Now, I'm not an expert on the U.S. by any means, but I've lived here long enough, and I've talked to enough people to understand it well enough to share some thoughts. And before I get started, please consider liking this video, subscribing if you want to see more geography from me, and supporting me through various platforms. Those links are down below. So let's start with some basics. The U.S. is the third largest country in the world at over 9 million square kilometers, surpassed only by Russia and Canada. It also has the third largest population at just over 327 million people. And even though it's huge and has a lot of people, it's still not the most populated or the most economically powerful country in the world. That would be China, and then arguably Japan, or maybe Germany. And yet, despite those two countries having a larger population and economy, the U.S. is still considered the most powerful country in the world. In terms of military power, it's ranked No. 1, according to Global Firepower. And in terms of economic power, it's No. 1 in nominal terms, and second in terms of purchasing power behind China. This has led to the common idea that America is a superpower, which is a term used to describe countries with a lot of political, economic, and military influence on the global stage. A lot of people argue that America is actually past its prime and isn't really a superpower anymore because of recent events. But regardless, it's still considered a great power and is very influential in international politics. And this is all despite the fact that the U.S. doesn't have the largest economy or the largest population. And I think the answer for how the U.S. became the most powerful country in the world lies within the country's ideologies, ideas that have become synonymous with America. One of them is freedom, and this is generally understood as the ability to do whatever you want without being restrained by the government. Now, obviously, this isn't true in the sense that the government has a lot of restrictions and laws. But compared to a lot of other countries, the government is relatively weak, and individuals have a lot of autonomy. The U.S. was built on the idea of individual liberty and limited government, an idea that came from Enlightenment thinkers like John Locke. He had this idea called natural rights, which included the right to life, liberty, and property. And this really influenced the founders of the U.S. They were heavily inspired by Locke and his ideas of individual autonomy. Another ideology that the U.S. was built on was democracy. Ancient Greece is usually credited with being the birthplace of democracy, but the U.S. is generally considered the birthplace of modern democracy. They were the first country to implement the idea of voting representative government on a large scale. And again, this comes back to their commitment to individual liberty. By allowing people to vote, every individual had a voice and representation in the government, and therefore had a say in how they were governed. These two ideologies have shaped the way the U.S. operates and interacts with the world. Its economic success can be tied directly to these ideas. When you have a government that isn't overly involved in the economy and a population that is free to make their own decisions, it creates a breeding ground for innovation and entrepreneurship. People are free to start their own businesses without excessive red tape or bureaucracy. They're free to pursue their own interests without fear of reprisal from the government. And this has led to some of the greatest innovations and economic growth the world has ever seen. This operating system has allowed companies to become giants. Apple is the biggest company in the world by market cap, at almost $3 trillion. Microsoft is second at $2.5 trillion. Google, Amazon, and Tesla round out the top 5. And if you add up the top 6 companies in the world, 4 of them are American, and they total $10 trillion, nearly 40% of the entire world's market cap. And this isn't just reflected in the private sector either. 5 of the top 10 universities in the world are in the U.S., and America leads the world in patents filed each year. They also produce the most scientific articles annually and receive the most citations. The U.S. is a powerhouse when it comes to innovation, and it's largely due to the country's commitment to freedom and democracy. But freedom and democracy aren't the only ideologies that define the U.S. Another important one is opportunity. Since its founding, the U.S. has been seen as a land of opportunity, a place where anyone can come and make something of themselves. This has been especially true for immigrants who have come to the U.S. from all over the world. The U.S. is seen as a place where they can escape persecution or poverty and start a new life for themselves and their families. The U.S. has always been welcoming of immigrants. It was built on the idea of providing opportunity for everyone, and that's part of the reason why it's such a diverse country today. As of the 2020 census, over 60 million people in the U.S. were foreign-born. That's about 18% of the total population, and this has helped to make the U.S. a very diverse country. According to a Pew Research Center study, the U.S. is the most racially and ethnically diverse country in the developed world. About 65% of the country identifies as white, 18% Hispanic, 12% Black, and 6% Asian. There's also a small number of people who identify as more than one race. And the U.S. is also becoming more diverse as time goes on. Between 2010 and 2020, the Hispanic and Asian populations grew faster than any other racial or ethnic group. And this diversity has helped to make the U.S. a very vibrant country. It's also helped to make it a very entrepreneurial one. Immigrants are more likely to start businesses than native-born citizens, and this has helped to fuel the U.S. economy. Over the years, immigrants have started some of the most successful companies in the U.S. Some examples include Ford Motor Company, Google, Intel, eBay, PayPal, Instagram, and WhatsApp. These companies have created millions of jobs and contributed billions of dollars to the U.S. economy. And that's just a few examples. There are countless other immigrants who have started successful businesses in the U.S. and contributed to its economic growth. But the U.S. isn't perfect. Despite its commitment to freedom, democracy, and opportunity, the U.S. has struggled to live up to its ideals. For most of its history, The U.S. has been a very unequal country. The richest people have gotten to enjoy the benefits of freedom and democracy, while the poorest people have struggled to get by. And unfortunately, things haven't really changed much. Today, the U.S. is still a very unequal country. The top 1% of earners make more than 40 times what the bottom 90% make. And this inequality has led to a lot of problems. It's led to a decline in social mobility, an increase in poverty, and a decrease in overall happiness. So the U.S. has a lot of problems and it's far from perfect. But I think its ideologies have helped to make it the most powerful country in the world. Its commitment to freedom, democracy, and opportunity has created a breeding ground for innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's what's allowed it to become the economic powerhouse it is today. So where will the country be in 10 years? That's tough to say. The country is currently facing a lot of challenges, from political polarization to economic inequality to climate change. If it can't address these challenges, it could fall behind other countries like China and lose its status as a superpower. But if it can address these challenges, it could continue to be the most powerful country in the world for years to come. But what do you think? Does the U.S. deserve to be considered the most powerful country in the world? And what do you think its ideologies have done for the country? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it. Subscribe if you want to see more geography from me. And you can follow me on social media to see what I'm up to when I'm not making videos. If you want to watch more about individual countries, check out the playlist. And if you want to learn about geography in a fun way, check out the website. Alright, that's all I've got. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.